Otherwise, I'd have to bring you down to earth too. I know this verse hurts you. I tell you what, I give you advice. I'm feeling nice. Your vices could influence your writing if you weren't biting. Y'all trying to be people that.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we're going to be talking about Smackdown from October the 7th, 2022. We also going to do news and notes, and at the end of the show, we will be doing Extreme Rules predictions. Now, interestingly enough, this wasn't a very strong episode in terms of a go-home episode. You know, a lot of the people who are featured, with the exception of Sheamus and Gunther, probably won't even be on Extreme Rules tomorrow night. So it is what it is. But first, let's do news and notes. First note, October the 18th is a pretty big night. It's a Tuesday. On that Tuesday, there will be a live episode of NXT, but there will also be a live episode of AEW Dynamite. But in there also will be a Vince McMahon documentary on Vice. They all will be airing at the same time between 8 and 10. So get ready for the Tuesday Night War. Get ready for all that chitter chatter. I expect that AEW is going to suffer some kind of hit for being off of their regular time, even though they're going to be in their regular time slot. I expect Vice documentary to come in dead last in this competition, even though it is Vince McMahon. I don't think that many people even have Vice TV on their cable. So just be prepared for all of the chitter chatter around this and how, you know, AEW probably slightly beat NXT in the overall viewership, but smashed them in the 18 to 49 demographic. We're going to go right back to this crap. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE doesn't do something slick in order to combat this. I think this is the same night that Moxley versus Page will actually be happening. WWE should probably do something big, like maybe throw Roman on this show on NXT, but I don't think they should do nothing like that. I was just figuring, like, you know, hey, if they had a competitive bone in their body, you know, or thought that NXT should compete, they should counteract with something big. But as of right now, this is 2 weeks away, and Braun Breaker has no feud for it really that can lead to that point, and they have no top, you know, guys that could work that show that would prevent NXT from taking such a huge hit. So I expect NXT and AEW to be pretty close in the overall viewership, but I don't expect it to be that close at all in the 18 to 49s. The WWE or the documentary for Vince McMahon that Vice has been running, it seemed like it was slapdash thrown together really quickly. But I also am not sure that it is. Apparently, they talked to quite a few wrestling journalists, one of whom was actually Brandon Thurston. So take from that what you will. It would be a 2-hour documentary on Vince. I expect it to be a hit piece. That's just me. But then again, I expect anything that comes out about Vince for the next several years to be a hit piece. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to end up watching it eventually, but on this particular night, I'm going to be in a difficult position because I don't know what to watch live because I'll have to do a review the next day. So maybe I'll end up watching NXT live and I'll watch Dynamite the next day, or I'll watch I guess it depends on what day I have to work. If I have to work that Tuesday, which means the day of, then I'll probably just watch Dynamite. If I don't have to work the next day, which is the Wednesday, I'll watch, you know, NXT, then I'll watch Dynamite right after, and I'll watch the McMahon documentary the next day. But this is a tough thing about doing reviews about everything, is because I definitely want to see all of this stuff, but all of it being on at the same time is not fun. In terms of the Vince McMahon documentary, I haven't heard anybody who's not a wrestling journalist that was involved with this. I doubt anybody in WWE will be involved with this. Maybe some people from AEW, maybe some people who don't work there anymore will be involved. But I expect it to be a lot of, you know, general gossip and he said, she said, allegedly stuff. Because that's just kind of how the internet works. Okay, the last note is Nigel McGuinness has been released from WWE. He was the commentator for NXT UK. I think a lot of people actually kind of forgot that he even worked in WWE because he was doing NXT UK. And since NXT UK was folded, and apparently NXT Europe won't start until next year, I guess they're going to go in a different direction with their commentary. I figure, he might pop up here and there until NXT Europe, booted up. But I guess not. So he's going to be on the open market for a little while. Do I expect AEW to snatch him up? Look, Nigel McGuinness can't wrestle, but at least I don't think he can wrestle. At this point, they may take him and say that he's going to be a Ring of Honor commentator because he has a history there. And Tony Khan likes doing fan servicey things like, the bad company fired this guy. He has such value. We're going to take him and bring him over here, He could be an effective manager or something like that, but he has a lot of history with Ring of Honor. And so I expect Tony Khan to snatch him up as quickly as he possibly can, if for nothing but the goodwill. All right, so let's talk about SmackDown. There's a QR code on Triple H's microphone because he started the show just to welcome us to SmackDown. He gave us, I think, one sentence that when you think everything is over, that's when it really begins or something like that. And the QR code sent to back to the Three Little Pigs, let me in, and eventually you see Huskus. So they're being a lot more overt now with telling everybody that Bray Wyatt will be returning. Later in the episode, there was also a White Rabbit commercial for Extreme Rules where the White Rabbit digs a hole and jumps inside of it. Like fire and everything comes out. So basically just telling you Bray Wyatt will be back tomorrow on Extreme Rules, which is good. They're not trying to hide it anymore. They also had a White Rabbit walking through the crowd. But before we get into SmackDown, let's talk about this because this is kind of a note. There had been a lot of talk about the Wyatt Six, that there being a sort of a new Wyatt family with Bray Wyatt now calling himself, the Wyatt Six on I think like social media somewhere, that perhaps it's going to be 6 people as a member of his family. And they've been doing, Karrion Kross and Joe Gacy and all of these kinds of people being tied up in Bray Wyatt, sort of a new Wyatt family of sorts. Do I like the idea? Yes. I think the idea itself is fine. If you want to have Bray Wyatt be the centerpiece of an angle in which he is involved with all of these other different, characters across the WWE platform, that could be fine. If he's got 1 or 2 guys on Raw, 1 or 2 guys on SmackDown, 1 or 2 guys on NXT, that's fine. He could be operating some kind of higher power, kind of like his own little ministry of darkness. That could work. I don't hate it. I will have to see how it works in execution before I have a full opinion on it. But I'm more in the vein of, I think it's just going to be Bray Wyatt. I think the whole Wyatt Six thing is just, his obsession with like the Bible and the number 6 and all that kind of stuff. And, the red circles and all this sort of stuff that he's been getting himself into, all this symbolism, There's a guy on the internet, his name is, Jonathan Pajot. He does a lot of the symbolism stuff on YouTube. He could probably have a field day with the Fiend and Bray Wyatt and the Christian imagery and all that, and numerology and all this kind of stuff. They could probably have a blast with that. It's not necessarily anything that I'm very adept in. I know a little bit about it, but I don't know a lot. But I'm pretty sure the Wyatt Six has a certain meaning, probably something to do with the devil. Just like, the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf, is symbolism, It's not just the story of the 3 little pigs, but also what that story means about being huffed and puffed and blown down. It's about building resilience over time and being able to come back. So there's something important there. All right, so now we can finally get into the show. So Roman Reigns and the Bloodline start the show. They lead me to believe that there's going to be some kind of interaction between him and Triple H. But it takes Roman 15 minutes to get to the ring. It is an Undertaker-like entrance for the Bloodline, where it takes them forever to get to the ring. And so Triple H vanished into thin air, just poof. I don't know where he went. And Logan Paul came out there before Roman even talked. And then we got a very awkward promo from Paul Heyman. After Roman wanted whatever they were, I think a Worcester, Mass. A weird place to have a match. Not Boston, Worcester. After he wanted them to acknowledge him, Paul Heyman, decided to cut a promo to educate young Logan Paul. And this is a promo that teaches us that sometimes, you don't need to, it's not a mixture of politics really, but it kind of is. Where Paul Heyman talks about, WWE likes to do these freak show things. Logan Paul, let's back up a little bit. Logan Paul reminds him of the Mr. T and the Cyndi Lauper of this generation. Somebody who doesn't deserve to be in a WWE ring, but they do this stuff to get more attention so that more people can acknowledge Roman Reigns. He called him a male Kardashian and then started talking about all these people who don't have the balls to fight Roman Reigns. He's mentioned Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and Andrew Tate. He dissed all three of them in a way, but it was an interesting choice of these three names. And then, of course, all the chitter chatter on the internet was half, why is he mentioning these people? Half, who the hell are these people? A lot of folks are trying to gauge the fan reaction for when he mentioned Ben Shapiro. What was the fan reaction? It's I don't think they have a crossover audience that much. I just don't think too many people expected this or cared enough about it. The thing is, man, I'm not a person that is going to have a reaction too much to these names being mentioned. It's just weird, to me, it seemed like these three people are permanently on the internet, even though we know that they're not. But it just seems like everywhere you turn, there's Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and Andrew Tate stuff, and it's everywhere. And it's God damn, do I really need this in wrestling too? I don't. I don't really need it in wrestling. And I know a lot of people, some people have even said this is the worst Paul Heyman promo ever because nobody understood the references. And that's true. There's a lot of people who didn't understand the references, and you shouldn't use references that people won't get. I think Andrew Tate, probably of all of them, got the most visceral reaction because he's the one who's been in the media the most in terms of it's just pickup artist language that he speaks. Pickup artists and all that kind of stuff. They decided every year that they're going to find one and then isolate him and then attack him and destroy him and everything. And it's just this year it's been Andrew Tate. But there has been nothing that I've heard from Andrew Tate, at least, that is outside of the ordinary pickup artist, manosphere stuff, the MGTOW stuff, the red pill philosophy. It's all the same shit, just coming out of different bodies. And it was said with different levels of charisma. So I haven't heard anything too different from him. Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson even being mentioned was very weird. Very, very weird. I did think that it was funny that he said that Ben Shapiro is a yarmulke. He's not a fighter, which is that's true, but you kind of knew that before you made this comment that Super Jew Ben Shapiro. But it ought to be interesting to see if there's any responses from these guys. These people are online quite a bit. Are they going to being mentioned on SmackDown? Because that could be, sort of word of mouth advertising, but it's not necessarily a good thing. Because I don't think anything good is going to come out of it. And it's there's no money in it. Maybe we should have mentioned some other male celebrities, maybe some movie stars or something like that. But I get it. He was trying to mention podcasters and, controversial podcasters. And that was sort of his goal. But I don't see anything too controversial about any of these guys. If you don't like them, you don't like them. If you like them, you like them. I mean, it is what it is. Jordan Peterson is, he's off the rails a little bit, since his return. He's kind of been, it went from being a smooth bullet train to sort of being a rickety old train. Like he's not as on point as he used to be. But and Ben Shapiro, I just have my moments with Ben Shapiro where one moment I just want to push him in the mud, and next moment I'm like, all right, he's on point. But Andrew Tate, outside of the clips, I don't know anything about him. Outside of clips, which are sometimes taken out of context, I'm not familiar with him at all. So for my audience who expects me to know a little bit about everything, I do know about all three of these guys. It's just that to me, Jordan Peterson is very smart, but he steps outside of his area of expertise too often. And Ben Shapiro is also very smart, but he's also, hyper conservative, and I'm a libertarian, so we're just not going to get along on that tip. And Andrew Tate, I just don't know enough about him. So it was very weird promo from Paul Heyman to even mention these people, but he did what he did. But the bottom line is, none of them have the balls to fight Roman Reigns. And then, of course, they talked about Logan Paul and his family having the balls to fight guys, and Anderson Silva going to knock out his brother or something like that. And then he's the crowd. You can't forget about the crowd. The crowd is vehemently against Logan Paul. There's a Logan Paul sucks, a Logan sucks chant in the crowd. It's very loud too. WWE thought that Logan Paul was going to end up being a babyface in this whole thing. They were wrong. They were wrong. The demographic that knows who Logan Paul is think he sucks. The demographic who doesn't know who he is are just kind of like, okay, kids here, whatever. But there's a lot of people, his followers that are online and Twitter and stuff. I don't expect them to buy tickets to go to the show. So I expect, he has a big fan base on YouTube and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I expect them to support him there, not necessarily to support him in the arenas, because I don't understand, maybe they don't know when he's going to be there, and I don't expect them to watch an entire episode of SmackDown just to see Logan Paul. Because I know if my favorite celebrity was involved in wrestling and I wasn't a wrestling fan, I wouldn't watch the entire show just to see them, and I wouldn't buy a ticket just to see them. I would, however, be very interested if they were doing something and I peeked in on it. So that's kind of how I would take it. Logan Paul tried to cause some dissension in the bloodline by saying that Jey Uso is the tribal chief. This got Roman and Jey Uso face to face, nose to nose, with Jey kind of shirking. It's the alpha beta animal instinct. Where Roman, confronts Jey, and Jey kind of backs down a little bit, kind of looks away, or tucks his chin, and all this kind of stuff. Then Sami Zayn interrupts, stands up for Jey Uso by saying that Roman is the tribal chief, and nobody is challenging that, and that Jey didn't do anything wrong. Jey didn't do anything wrong. Jey didn't do nothing wrong. Then he says, of course, they're the ones, and Logan Paul is the biggest number 2 of them all. So that's the segment. Trying to use Logan Paul to turn Jey Uso or whatever is probably not the right decision. They should have used somebody else, somebody who's more over. I thought they were going to try to lead to a Jey Uso Logan Paul match. I thought that's where they were going with this. And I was about to say, that's going to be a pretty big match for, the season premiere if they're going to have Logan Paul wrestle on SmackDown. But, and of course, I expected Logan Paul to win that match. But they didn't do that. So I was like, that was very interesting. So backstage, they got another promo segment or another bloodline segment where Sami Zayn is backstage and he's very excited. And Sami is in love with Solo Sikoa, who defeated Ricochet. He then talks about having Solo Sikoa under his wing and saying that he feels like he's taking Solo Sikoa along. That, that he's taking Solo under his wing. This pissed off Jey Uso, who says, like, what do you mean taking him under your wing? That's my brother. That's our brother. And then Sami says that Jey Uso is being too much of a hothead. And then Jey got mad about that, being called a hothead. And then Roman agrees, saying that Jey is a hothead. And he's been dealing with this their whole lives, been dealing with Jey's hothead. But now it's Sammy's problem. And everybody was like, well, what does that mean? So apparently Roman has put Jay and Jimmy under the thumb of Sami Zayn, which it seems to be the end game here. Like, because the next segment that they're walking around and they run into the they run into the New Day rather, and Sami Zayn pretty much does all the talking, and the New Day basically suggest that Sami Zayn is Jey Uso's daddy, and of course in very silly fashion they suggest he has two daddies. Which Sami Zayn steps out the box and challenges them to a 6-man tag if they get a partner. They do get that partner, and that partner was Braun Strowman. The New Day and Braun Strowman defeat the Usos and Sami Zayn as Jey Uso and Sami Zayn argued throughout the match, and Jimmy was kind of left alone to be mauled by Braun Strowman. Eventually, Braun Strowman and the New Day did win. This is probably the first New Day victory this year. It seemed like they haven't won a match this year, but this was not bad. So this was it. There was no more bloodline for the evening. So Sami Zayn is being pushed as a significant member of the bloodline, and as a significant member of the bloodline, the Usos are sort of his responsibility. Their success is his responsibility. So they lost, but they lost because they're going to end up blaming Jay for the losing, even though Jimmy's, I think, the one who got beat. But Jimmy was also left alone with Braun Strowman and two other guys to get his ass kicked. So, ought to be interesting. Solo Sikoa and Ricochet, the finish of that match was tremendous. The Uranagi out of the Shooting Star Press was pretty fucking cool. Solo is very impressive as a wrestler. He does have that Umaga body type. He does look different from the Usos. He looks different. He looks similar enough that he fits in, but he looks different enough to be unique. And that's kind of what you're looking for when it comes to a wrestler who is related to some other people. You don't want them to look exactly the same. You want them to look similar enough, but look different enough too. So I enjoyed the bloodline stuff on this show. Some people thought it was a little too much bloodline. I don't. I just think that the Paul Heyman promo was a little awkward with him mentioning, these three political figures, I guess. But other than that, it's a very solid thing. They planted some seeds with Jay and Roman. They planted the seed of going back to that. And I think most of us kind of recognize that Jey Uso, being the guy who sort of started the bloodline behind Roman, has got to be sort of the weak piece in the armor and be one of the reasons why this thing falls apart. Now, clearly they're going to turn on Sami Zayn, likely after War Games or whatever, because I still believe that the War Games thing will happen. I expect Sami Zayn to be the one to lose, but maybe they'll blame Jay for it somehow because Sami is, a golden child right now. They really like Sami Zayn right now, but they're not really feeling Jay. And that's kind of a running theme, is that Jay being the attack dog at first was a good thing because it was establishing Roman's authority and it was establishing Roman's power, that he had somebody very strong in his pocket. But now it's becoming a distraction because, him being the guard dog, he's trying to guard against somebody that the fam actually likes. So it's not really working out for him. But, it's getting some heat on him from everybody else. Especially because he's being so joyless about it. Like, Jimmy seems to genuinely like Sami and is laughing at his jokes and shit. And Solo is tolerating him. And Roman likes Sami, but Jay doesn't. So it seems like, and they always not feeling Jay anyway. Like the whole Roman Jay Uso thing, okay, so it goes back over a year where with Roman and Jay, So that's long form storytelling right there, The whole Roman Jay, why can't I be the tribal chief? Why can't I feed the family? Like, Jay, what's going on, man? But it goes back a little bit. So they're feeding into that. And I like it. It's just, I wonder how they're going to execute the separation of the bloodline, because I'm one of those people that thinks that the bloodline needs to sort of be dissolved before Roman loses the belt. Because I think it makes it easier to beat him if the bloodline isn't there. Because part of the storyline that has been going on for 2 years isn't just that Roman is dominating people and winning. He's dominating some people and winning. And other times, the bloodline is helping him significantly. So we need to, show some chinks in the armor. And we got a couple of chinks in the armor here right now. Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, their relationship, but also them individually. In terms of Sami Zayn being, not that successful in wrestling so far, outside of, getting some outside help. He's the guy in the group that you can beat, the guy that you can pin. And Jey Uso being, easily distracted and very aggressive, that creates weaknesses too. So there's some things to do here. And I think War Games is probably going to build up to it, because War Games is the last event before I think it's the end of the year rather, because there's no December pay-per-view, I don't believe. So the last pay-per-view of the year is the War Games match, and then the first is, I think, day 1. But then the Royal Rumble is right after that. So they could lose at War Games, then maybe lose the tag team championships at day 1, then Royal Rumble, and then you go from there to WrestleMania season, and you can slowly but surely piece off members of the bloodline at that point, and leave Roman by himself. I don't know. I guess it just depends on which direction they're going in, but I still am a firm believer that it's going to be Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens that are going to end up being the two guys who takes the tag team titles off of the Usos. And with that, my belief in that means by WrestleMania, the bloodline is going to have to blow up in some way. It's going to have to be some kind of big blow up. And of course, I think so many people are expecting it to be War Games where Sami Zayn loses and causes the team to win. And that's going to be like the last straw. But that's December and WrestleMania is in April. So unless you do something to write Sami Zayn off TV for, 2 months, maybe. I don't know how you drag that thing for 4 months. I don't know how you drag it that long. Unless they beat them for the tag team titles before WrestleMania. I don't know about that, but we'll talk about all that when we get there. Okay, so that was the bloodline. Hit Row was backstage. They were talking in rhyme. An SUV pulled up behind them and they didn't see it, of course. Hit Row was introduced. They walked to the ring and then were immediately attacked by 3 men in masks. It was Legado del Fantasma. This was spoiled essentially the day before. It was also spoiled maybe 2 hours before that Zelina Vega was going to replace Elektra Lopez in Legado del Fantasma. So you didn't get the big surprise. No, you didn't. You just got it snatched from your fingertips just hours before. Santos Escobar basically said that Legado del Fantasma now runs SmackDown and for everybody to be safe. So Zelina Vega is on Legado del Fantasma. This is great. Of course, no Elektra Lopez. That's not good. Here's my thing. I am 100% fine with Zelina Vega being in Legado del Fantasma. I am 100% good with that. I am 0% good with Elektra Lopez not being in Legado del Fantasma. I am not good with that. My thing is, hear me out. Why can't you have both? Why can't you have both? You need women. You need women's tag teams for your women's tag team division. Elektra Lopez and Zelina Vega could be a great team. Why wouldn't you have that? Why wouldn't you want that? Because it would be the first faction outside of Damage Control that has a female tag team in it. All the other factions that Triple H has, either reformed or created recently, from the Bloodline to Imperium, none of them have a female tag team involved in it. But this one could. This one could make Legado del Fantasma unique. And it's also a question of whether Zelina Vega is just going to be the mouthpiece, which Santos Escobar doesn't need a mouthpiece for starters. Which also begs the question of why can't you have Elektra Lopez? Because she wasn't the mouthpiece of Legado del Fantasma. She didn't need to be because Santos Escobar could talk himself. So he also doesn't need Zelina Vega. So, I don't know. But I love the look of the group. I just wish that Elektra Lopez was there. That's all. I just don't see why you can't use them in a tag team format and make this thing work. Also, them attacking Hit Row is sort of a callback to their NXT feud. The lengthy Hit Row Legado del Fantasma feud from, what was it, last year? Before Swerve and all those guys got called up to SmackDown. Okay, and they seem to be playing off of that history between those two groups. At the same time, though, I do say that Hit Row shouldn't be losing right now, and Legado del Fantasma also shouldn't be losing. So, I don't know. I don't know how you book this. I'm guessing Hit Row is going to end up doing the job because they're not over, despite the fact that they've got like a 2-month head start on being on SmackDown. And the rapping thing isn't quite working. But I expect Legado del Fantasma to get over, especially once they let Santos Escobar do his thing. I definitely expect him to get over and to be a very strong unit. I just wish that Elektra Lopez could be there. It sucks. And I don't know what they're doing with her. Some people have said that she's going to stay in NXT. Some people have said that she's going to go off on her own. I don't think any of those are good ideas. Even if you don't think she's great in the ring yet, so what? She's going to be in a tag team. Ridge Holland also wasn't ready when you called him up. That's how we got the Big E injury thing. Schatzi doesn't look that great, in terms of people who are, snatched from NXT and brought to the main roster. Of course, Dakota Kai is, God. She looked like a gingerbread man. Like, there's just no way, that we can hold back Elektra Lopez. There's just no reason for it. They better have a very good reason if she's not going to be involved with this. They better not fire her or anything stupid like that. She's a very important part of the group, and we need her to be there. If for no other reason than she could probably be, even if you're just going to say she's not going to be a tag team partner for Zelina Vega, but maybe she could be Zelina Vega's personal bodyguard or something like that. Her enforcer. That could work too. There's a lot of different things you could do with Elektra. And, not using her is an absolute mistake. And we'll see. I'm going to give her some time because she might get brought in later. But we'll see. But as of right now, my immediate response is, why can't you have both? And there's no real excuse for Elektra Lopez to not be there. Next, Isaia Lee and Sonia Deville lose to Raquel Rodriguez and Schatzi. Oh, God. That match meant nothing. Poor Sonya Deville. I mean, I would say poor Isaia Lee, too, because she never really got out of the box. It's unfortunate that they put all that effort into the vignettes and everything, and it just nothing ever came out of it. But Sonya Deville has been a real tragedy because she hasn't been a beneficiary of Triple H's uplift, and she really could be. Especially when you see so many of the women who are being pushed, especially on Raw, they are not the promo that Sonya Deville is. I just don't see why Sonya Deville isn't utilized better. And somebody, I forget, I don't know if it was on a live stream, I don't know if it was in the comment section, maybe I saw it on Twitter, but somebody says that Sonya Deville would probably be involved with Toxic Attraction. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think Sonya Deville, as sort of the character that she was doing last year when she was feuding with Naomi and everything, I think that works. And I don't think you could do much of anything with her in Toxic Attraction because that's not really the gimmick. The gimmick of Toxic Attraction is scantily clad and kind of doing their own thing, while Sonya Deville has sort of been girl boss turned up to 100. And I like that version of Sonya Deville. Even if she was just going to be like the manager, like that still doesn't come across like she fits. So I don't know. Maybe they'll do a Charlie's Angels kind of thing, and Sonya Deville will be like Charlie, and Mandy Rose and all of them would be like behind her. That could work, I guess. That would be a managerial like role, but I don't know. I think Sonya Deville could definitely has everything you need to be a top female in WWE. Sonya Deville has it, and she's under the age of 30. Why the fuck we're not pushing her is confusing to me. Maybe they know something I don't. They got a vignette for Ronda and Liv Morgan. This is the only time we've seen them the whole night. They didn't cut a promo on each other or anything. They just did a vignette for them. Karrion Kross came out there, got attacked by Drew McIntyre. They hit each other. I was about to say strapped each other. Pause. They hit each other with the strap a couple of times. Kross eventually fought back, and then, they went their own way. Okay, I'm interested in this match, but we'll talk about it during the predictions. The Viking Raiders had a vignette where they talked about watching and waiting, and the Valhalla awaits. There was a female voice, and many people know that this is probably going to be Sarah Logan, who is the wife of, I want to say Eric. She's the wife of Eric of the Viking Raiders. So this is going to be like the fourth reboot of the Viking Raiders. Hopefully this is going to be better. Maybe having a female would, elevate the group, give them somebody to care about. But it also works in terms of, Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, them having that history. So there's instantly something that they could do that would make the Viking Raiders interesting. Is they could, pit Sarah Logan versus Liv Morgan. And then that would force Liv Morgan to have to entrust herself with two guys. And that could lift up a tag team. So what two guys would it be? Who knows? But there could definitely be two guys who could stand next to her as she opposes Liv Morgan or Sarah Logan and the Viking Raiders. So that's the one thing I could think that they could do that would make the Viking Raiders interesting, is get them involved with Liv Morgan, who is, despite the fact that I kind of rip on her a little bit, or at least on her fan base, she is over. And outside of having 100 matches with with New Day, what are the Viking Raiders actually going to do? And that's going to be the question, outside of having long matches, what are they going to do? So, here's hoping that works. Max Dupree officially kicks himself out of the Maximum Male Models and becomes LA Knight again after he attacked the Maximum Male Models backstage and just kind of abruptly said that this wasn't him, this is not him, it's never been him. He is LA Knight. Yeah. Then it was on Twitter that I think it was Mansoor. He changed Max Dupree to LA Knight in his phone, and the phone number popped up. So I'm guessing he kind of lightweight doxed LA Knight by having his phone number pop up. But a lot of people are very excited to see LA Knight return. I am too. I like LA Knight. I like him infinitely better than the Max Dupree concept. I just didn't like how we got here. But at this point, doesn't really matter. At this point, it doesn't matter anymore. Getting him out from under Max Dupree was a good idea. It was a great idea, actually. That phone number, when I saw the area code was 248, I was like, yeah, this is some bullshit. I know he ain't got a Michigan phone number, so that's not I know too many people in Michigan with 248 area codes. There's just no way. It's not going to work. It's no doubt a joke number, so if you call it, it'll probably be like some kind of Rickroll or whatever. But that's fun shit, leading people to believe that Mansoor had actually doxed LA Knight, which is great. I expect Maximum Male Models to be in the dustbin of history within the next couple of weeks. He's probably going to beat both of them, and then they're going to get fired by Maxine, and she's going to have to go off and maybe go do something with Los Lotharios. So LA Knight is back. I remember when everybody hated the name LA Knight. Now everybody's popping for it, which is great. It was a vignette for Sheamus versus Gunther, and then we got the match. Now, this match, boy, oh boy. Both guys send their crews to the back. They're going to go at it, mano y mano. And you could close your eyes and listen to this match. And I understand that Sammy Guevara was probably shaking in his boots at this match. He probably quaked and hid under the covers because of this match. I mean, for Christ's sake, these guys they're not bullshitting, right? When it comes to the physical aspects of this pro wrestling stuff, they ain't bullshitting at all. They beat the tar out of each other for like 20 minutes. It was excellent. Sheamus did 30 beats of the Belfry on each ring rope on Gunther. That was great. The big surprise that got everybody chitter-chattering was the the double tap, when Gunther was in the cloverleaf. And that got a lot of people talking, because it's been so long since people had to follow the rules and understand the rules that most people thought he tapped out. Most people thought Gunther tapped out because he tapped twice. And Sheamus, of course, was a little late in responding to that, and Jessica Carr, the referee, she waved it off. But Sheamus was like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? He tapped out. And she was like, nope. Now, on commentary, they said that Gunther was reaching for the ropes, which is the old ECW trick with Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow, where Bam Bam Bigelow was reaching for the ropes and he tapped out, which is an odd finish for them. But that's what Wade Barrett and Michael Cole are screaming about on commentary, is that, Jessica Carr said he was reaching for the ropes, which, no. What happened is what's called a Brazilian tap. It is a low-key is a somewhat underhanded technique to get your opponent to release a submission hold by pretending to tap out. And it is playing upon, the honor system between opponents, that you release your opponent if they tap out. So what you do is you trick them. You tap, but you don't tap out. You tap twice. Technically, you have to tap 3 times in order to lose. And tapping twice, he got Sheamus to let go of the hold, or at least weaken the hold so he can get to the ropes. And at that point, the entire arena thinks that Gunther tapped out and that Gunther should lose, and it's over. And it's been years since this very, very obscure rule has been enforced or utilized or used in any way. And you will see it's on the same level of like when Stone Cold Steve Austin tapped out, but he grabbed the bottom rope first. It's along those same lines where, maybe it was a visual submission, but it wasn't an actual submission. So that was great. It popped the crowd. It got people really amped up. People were really, even on the internet, people are really throwing a fit over this. The crews come back to fight. They're fighting outside the ring. They're even fighting in the ring. At that point, Ludwig Kaiser rolls the shillelagh to Gunther, who uses it in a lariat and pins Sheamus. So we got a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff here. One, we got Imperium breaking their credo. The match is sacred, breaking the honor code between, combatants, which is what a good heel would do. They would tell you one thing and do another. Gunther cared more about winning than making sure that the match was sacred and all this kind of stuff. So that's perfect. All of this was perfect. It worked wonderfully. It was a great trick on the audience who have not for a long time known the rules. So yes, there's going to be people who are going to be confused, especially if you have just getting into wrestling within the last, 10 to 15 years. You've never seen this before. I was, of course, around when the tap out was introduced. It was introduced by Ken Shamrock into the WWE, and that triple tap is the rule. You have to tap at least 3 times. And tapping twice, Gunther did not submit. So it was great. It was great. And it really taught an engaged audience to stay engaged. is you just can't take for granted when a guy starts tapping that it's over, you know? So that was great, you know, and I really liked that the audience was paying attention, you know, and everybody kind of rose with that moment. They was kind of like, oh, Sheamus won. Wait a minute, what do you mean he didn't win? You know, like, some people think that it burnt the audience a little bit, like a dusty finish, kind of. Yes, which is kind of the goal. You know, you get them up and then you snatch it away. You pull the rug from underneath them. It's a roller coaster, man. It is a roller coaster. They got people to that point, and then they gave them something to pop about, and then they yanked it from underneath them. And then shortly thereafter was the real finish. And everybody believes that Sheamus got screwed. He got jobbed out, whatever. And it leads, of course, to a third match between Sheamus and Gunther. And will have to be something more definitive. And it will have to be something that fits more in the Sheamus role. They've had 2 wrestling matches already, 2 very physical wrestling matches. Gunther won one of them straight up. He cheated in the second one. So the third one probably has to be like last man standing, Iron Man match, or something like that. But if you're going to put it more in the Sheamus camp, like he gets to pick the match or whatever, it's got to be some kind of weapons match. Now, they are going to have a Donnybrook on, which I'm not calling that a Donnybrook match. We'll call it a Donnybrook on Extreme Rules, which I expect the Brawling Brutes to win. So that's my first prediction off the top. Because Sheamus lost this match in such a weird way, I do expect the Brawling Brutes to actually beat Imperium in the Donnybrook. And that would probably lead to Sheamus getting another Intercontinental Championship match. But it'll have to be at, what's the next pay-per-view? It had to be Saudi Arabia, wouldn't it? It'll have to be at Crown Jewel. And it'll have to be in some kind of specialty match. But I wouldn't be surprised if they double down on the wrestling thing and go 2 out of 3 falls, Iron Man match or something like that. But I think it probably would fit better if it was Sheamus and a no disqualification, last man standing or something like that. But I'm loving these 2 guys working together. This is tremendous shit. And for somebody who half watches most matches like me, you know, I half watch matches sometimes. I'm not even gonna hold you up, and that's just true for everybody. This had me engaged throughout. I was into it from the bell to bell. I was paying attention. You know, these 2 guys are masters of craft. I love them both. They're great. It's a fantastic main event. I don't why they would have it on TV. I guess for the number, but at the same time, I don't know if Gunther or Sheamus are, you know, top level guys that you could put them in the main event of the show yet. But at the same time, the Intercontinental Championship is going to be the draw. So I like this. I loved everything about this. This was great. I don't see anything to complain about, even if you're nitpicking. All right, so let's go into Extreme Rules. The predictions. I've already given one. I expect the Brawling Brutes to win the Donnybrook. I actually want them to change their name from the Brawling Brutes. Triple H has been doing a lot of stuff. Maybe we could have a bit of a whisper, a bit of a conversation about this name, Brawling Brutes. Maybe we all just call them the Brutes. I would call them the Donnybrook Boys, you know, or something like that. Like it's more meaningful, you know. It's easier. It rolls off the tongue a little bit better. The Brawling Brutes just sounds like some Vince McMahon PG action figure shit. It sounds like some knockoff action figures, like Starman or something like that. You know, the All Star. You know, like, nah, man. We could spice this thing up a little bit better and make it a little bit more personal. But I expect this match to be very good, though. These styles make feuds, and this Imperium Brawling Brutes thing has been immaculate because of the style difference between Sheamus and Gunther, but the similarities, that's the beautiful thing. They're supposedly representing 2 different styles, but the similarities are there in terms of physicality, and they're really getting over Sheamus. Sheamus is getting probably more over now than he has been in a long time. Since maybe 2012. It's been at least 9 years since people cared so much about Sheamus. You know? And that's how long Sheamus has been around, by the way. He's been around a long time. You know, so he's having a career resurgence. So this is great. All right, next match. Edge versus Finn Balor. I Quit match. This is a match an I Quit match. You can almost guarantee that the babyface is likely to win it. I don't know when the last time a babyface lost an I Quit match. I could think of a couple of times that a babyface lost an I Quit match, and it's usually due to some kind of outside interference. The only time I've seen a babyface actually lose, like straight up lose an I Quit match, was Rey Mysterio quitting in a match against Chavo Guerrero when his knee got trapped in one of these. It's like those things he used to climb. It was like a pillar or whatever. His knee got trapped in there, and Chavo was bashing his knee with a chair, and Rey quit. But Rey is small. He was in a position of complete and total submission to his opponent where he couldn't get out of it. And we are more apt to believe that it's okay for Rey Mysterio to submit and to quit or whatever. That's probably the biggest win Chavo Guerrero ever had, to be quite honest. From my thinking, it was so significant that I remembered it, and I haven't seen that match since it happened. Mick Foley quit in an I Quit match, but that was due to Ric Flair wanting to hit Melina with a barbed wire baseball bat or some shit. It was dumb and contrived. That was the time where I didn't think it made sense for Foley to quit, but they had been doing this whole male feminist Mick Foley thing, and he wanted Melina involved, and Melina got out there to try to save him, and he quit to save her. It was stupid. Flair winning the match was fine, I guess, but the match itself I liked, but I didn't like the finish. I think the finish was shits. I actually did not mind Hardcore Rick during those years. I may have to do a little bit of a talk about Hardcore Ric Flair in 06 and his feud with Mick Foley, which I generally enjoyed. I generally enjoyed the Mick Foley Ric Flair feud, but those are the only two times I could think of at the top of my head where a babyface lost an I Quit match. If Finn Balor wins this match, it's the biggest win of his career. That's if he gets Edge to say I quit. My guess is that there's going to be some kind of throwing in of the towel, because I do think Finn Balor will win this match. And the dirt sheets are telling us that Finn Balor is going to get a big push, whatever that means. He's not going to become the world champion. So I don't know what a big push is going to be. He's been the United States champion within the last year or two already. And he hasn't been world champion in a long time. Unless you're going to shotgun him into being a top contender for the world title and have a Bloodline versus Judgment Day, which could be fun. There's no female members of the Bloodline, but this could be fun. That could be fun. Maybe Sami Zayn gets body slammed by, Rhea Ripley or whatever. But Edge doesn't need to win. But this feud needs to end, and maybe giving Judgment Day this final win, the big win was the goal overall. It's hard to, for Edge to pick what Edge can do, because he's at the tail end of his career, and you can always say Edge doesn't need it, which is almost always the case. He never needs to really win, but Good does need to win in the end. But they've been winning the whole time already anyway. So it's like, does the Judgment Day ever win the big one? He's going to have the numeric advantage with, Damian Priest and Dominic and Rhea being there. So do you have this guy who has the numeric advantage, is definitely going to have some run-ins from his partners? Do you have this guy lose? I guess so. I'm going to go with Finn Balor. And I'm going to go with somebody throwing in a towel. I'm going to go with Beth Phoenix throwing in the towel to save Edge from a massive beating. And, I think that's a very respectable finish. And I still think that you can take this thing to Saudi Arabia and have Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Rhea and Balor or whatever, or Rhea or Balor or Priest and Rhea or whatever. Because I still think that match is going to come. And them not having that match yet Very surprising to me. them choosing to not have that match yet is surprising to me. But I'm going to go with Finn Balor, and I'm going to go with somebody throwing in the towel. All right, third match, rather. Bianca Belaire versus Bayley in a ladder match for the Raw Women's Championship. I'm actually hearing that this match is going to be the main event. I don't like that idea. I don't like it being the main event, but Triple H is going to do what he do, So if he really wants to force damage control onto everybody, then he's going to force damage control onto everybody. This match is tailor-made for Bianca Belaire to lose without losing the title. Without getting pinned, rather. So I expect Bayley to win. Bayley is going to become the Raw Women's Champion. And Damage Control is going to have 3 championships, or 2 championships, rather. And there still won't be over. So I don't expect Bayley to magically win this title and then everybody cares about Io and Dakota Kai after this. But Damage Control, in order for them to sort of have any legitimacy, which actually may help them get over, is if people legitimately feel like they have taken over, then they have to win this championship. They won the tag team titles, so now they have that. And if they get the Raw Women's Championship, then they'll have that too. And then they can legitimately say that they're, in control. And then maybe, after the rematch, which Bayley will have to pin Bianca Belaire eventually, maybe in Saudi Arabia, Bayley could go trying to be Bayley Doe Straps again, and maybe she'll try to fight Liv Morgan. Which is what I'm guessing, because I don't know what the second act for Damage Control is. Is like once they got all the belts, what's left? Once they beat Bianca Belaire, who's next? They've all of the top female wrestlers on Raw at that point would have lost. It would be Alexa, Asuka, and Bianca. After that, who you got? So my guess would be that Damage Control would then move to SmackDown and try to take the belt from Liv Morgan. I don't like that idea, but that would be my next guess. It would be, that would be the next target. And who would be the hero coming out of this thing? Unless Becky Lynch is about to come back. Somebody said that Becky Lynch was backstage at Raw in Minnesota. Is she ready to come back yet? If so, then I guess we got our answer. It's going to be Bayley and Becky. There's also some talk of Charlotte coming back soon. But we'll see. But I expect Bayley to win this championship. Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in a strap match. I'm going to go with Karrion Kross. He kind of needs to win in order to legitimize himself, in order to be taken seriously. Karrion Kross has to defeat Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre, of course, in losing this match, will have lost at Clash at the Castle and lost at Extreme Rules in 2 very high-profile matches. The question then goes, where does either one of these guys go afterwards? Where does Drew go? Having lost in embarrassing fashion in his hometown and then sung songs about it, and then in order to try to make himself feel better, that's premium cope, by the way. That's pure uncut cope. I need to sing a song in order to feel better about losing. Anyway, I expect Karrion Kross to win this match, and he needs it in order to be a relevant challenger to Roman, in order to be taken seriously. So he has to win. But where does he go? Because does he challenge Roman in the future? It's like, where could you possibly do it where Karrion Kross can actually wrestle Roman Reigns in a marquee match? Do you do it at day 1? You can't do it at Survivor Series. You can't do it at Crown Jewel. They've already given that spot away. Is it day 1? I guess you could have Kross versus Roman day 1, or you could have it at the Royal Rumble, I guess. But I don't know. So Drew McIntyre is going to be flapping in the wind after this thing, but I think that Karrion Kross should win. Fight Pit, Matt Riddle versus Seth Rollins with Daniel Cormier as a special guest referee. They did a vignette package with Ariel Helwani being the voiceover. They're doing a lot of UFC crossover stuff, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. And I think that it brings a different, more serious feel to what they're doing. I expect that Matt Riddle will win this match because Matt Riddle has to win a match eventually. And this is going to end up being his specialty, the fight pit. And this is going to be fun. This to me is the main event. This is a long running feud. It's a match that people who, unless you've watched NXT, which most people in WWE, most people's fandoms haven't, and the fandom hasn't. They don't really watch NXT. Maybe they have gone back and watched the fight pit match since it was announced, and they've known that the match has already happened, and they went and looked it up. Maybe. Who knows? But to me, this is the main event because it's going to be a spectacle, and it's going to be interesting. But knowing Triple H, he's probably going to put those girls on last. So this match actually might go on first, which I'm not a fan of, but we'll see. And Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey, Extreme Rules for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This is an interesting situation because I personally don't know if taking the belt from Liv Morgan right now is the right decision. Because if you put it back on Ronda, what do you do? Who is going to face Ronda? Is it Bayley? The SmackDown women's division has been decimated. It's not good. The SmackDown women's division is weak as fuck, and it's partially their own fault for the way they've booked Sonya Deville and the way they've booked Raquel Rodriguez, who both of whom have tremendous potential. Lacey Evans is another one that they've booked poorly. She was actually over as a heel, and then they decided to cut her legs out from underneath her. And this is just during the Triple H era. It's not even talking about Vince, and how he often will forget that there's even a women's division on SmackDown. So something tells me that we're just going to see more Ronda and Natalya, which is going to make me blow out my own lantern and call it a day. But I want Ronda and Shayna as a heel tag team. That's what I want. And if we have to, Liv Morgan has to, underhandedly take this Extreme Rules match in order for us to get Ronda and Shayna as a tag team, I'm okay with that. It may end up being a babyface tag team, actually. But SmackDown is in such a weird position because if Liv beats Ronda Rousey again, this time in an Extreme Rules match, then she's solidified as a top champion. But she still doesn't have any contenders because, who's next? They haven't done a good job of building up contenders for, Liv or for Bianca, to be quite honest. Because if Bianca was to beat Bayley, there really is no opponents for her. My only guess is that Liv Morgan wins this match and then Charlotte shows up. That's my guess. All right. Or maybe not on this show she's going to show up, because I think that this is going to be about the return of Bray Wyatt, and he's going to pop up here. And he might even pop up during the Karrion Kross Drew McIntyre match, which I definitely think, it's going to be during some match. He's going to be Edge and Finn Balor, or it's going to be during Kross and McIntyre. And I think that probably would be, because I think that, if you do the whole Wyatt 6 thing, Judgment Day is one of those things that people think are going to be involved with Bray Wyatt. You could also have Bray Wyatt versus Edge, if that's really what you wanted to do. And I think that could work. That could be big for Bray, getting to work with Edge, because that wasn't even an option last year or 2 years ago. Edge was there, but he wasn't there. He wasn't working long running feuds. He's only working with Randy Orton. So if he could get in a feud with Edge, that could be great for Bray's career, because then he would have gotten the feud with, more legends, So I think that Bray Wyatt we'll see how it turns out, because I definitely expect him to be involved in this. But, so I don't think Charlotte will pop up here. I think Charlotte will likely pop up on SmackDown next week to make her return. And at that point, I don't think I want Charlotte versus Ronda. I think I want Charlotte versus Liv. And to be quite honest, there's a storyline between Charlotte and Liv that Charlotte was sort of the reason Liv kind of broke out on her own. If you remember, what was this, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where Liv first started to sort of have her individualization. It was in a segment with Charlotte where she sort of yelled at Charlotte to shut up or whatever. And that was her first sort of singles push. And then it floundered and she got put back in the Riot Squad. So I see that being something they could go back to, especially if they're going to now pay more attention to the history of the wrestlers that are involved. This is something that could work in terms of Liv Morgan versus Charlotte. They got history. But, you know, I just don't want Ronda to win. Let's put it like that. I just don't want Ronda to win. But I like the idea of Ronda and Shayna as a tag team. So let's go with that. I'm going to go with Liv Morgan to defeat Ronda Rousey. So I'm going to go with Liv Morgan. I'm going to go with Matt Riddle. I'm going to go with Karrion Kross. I'm going to go with Bayley, Finn Balor, and the Brawling Brutes. All right. SmackDown was a fun show, despite the fact that it didn't really sell Extreme Rules. But everything was nice. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, daddy.